All right, this is my ASOC299 final. I chose option two, and I picked Black Panther, the one from 2018, as my movie of choice. So, why did I choose Black Panther? I chose Black Panther because it's one of the few mainstream superhero films that centers around Black identity and African culture. It breaks away from the average like white Western superhero narrative and instead imagines what an uncolonized African nation could look like at the height of technological advancements. The film raises a lot of important questions about race, class, and gender on like a global scale. The movie shows three sociological themes that we have gone over in class in a whole new light and compared to other MCU movies. Its massive popularity and cultural impact also makes it really accessible and relevant, which helps the audience watching understand real life inequalities through the idea of like a fictional universe, or in this case, it's the MCU. So, just as a little background, Black Panther was released on February 16th, 2018, starring Chadwick Boseman as the main character, and was directed by Ryan Coogler. Black Panther was an extremely big hit when it came out. It grossed over $1.3 billion worldwide, and it made it the 14th highest grossing film of all time. And the character was originally created in 1966 by Stan Lee, and he was also Jack Kirby, I think. And he was also later introduced to the MCU in 2016 during Captain America Civil War, and then his movie came out afterwards. So, just like a little summary for the plot. After T'Challa's father was killed, he returned back to Wakanda, which was their secret advanced country in Africa, and became the king. And then also took on the mantle of the Black Panther, which his father previously had it. Um, Killmonger emerges. He's a former U.S. Black Ops soldier who has a secret royal bloodline, and he wants to use their technology to arm oppressed people around the world so that they can fight back. Obviously, T'Challa didn't like that idea because he wanted to keep peace. So Killmonger challenges T'Challa to a duel for the throne and eventually defeats him. And Killmonger begins to use Wakanda's technology to start a global revolution by distributing weapons and other resources to people. And T'Challa is revealed that he ended up living and he reclaimed the throne after defeating Killmonger. And he ends up deciding to share their knowledge and resources with the world to build bridges instead of walls. So here are the three themes found in Black Panther: race, gender, class. Those are also the three sociological themes that we went over in class. So first we'll start with race. Uh, so Wakanda versus the West. This movie tackles the race theme extremely well, in my opinion. Wakanda is portrayed as an uncolonized, like self-sufficient nation in Africa, which is secretly the most advanced and powerful nation on the planet. It's basically a direct contrast to the normal stereotypes in film, where African countries are portrayed as like poor and helpless. And when Killmonger is introduced, we see his experiences in the U.S., showing like the racial oppression he faced, which raised the question on if Wakanda should use its resources to help oppress people worldwide, or if they should just stay hidden and protect themselves. Both T'Challa and Killmonger answer the question just differently. T'Challa, wanted a peaceful reform, and Killmonger wanted just like revolutionary resistance, no matter how many people died or what the consequences were. The film pretty much shows that African identity is shaped by its location and history, and not just like a set thing. Throughout the movie, T'Challa represented like a culturally rooted ancestral identity, and he was like very proud of his traditions and stuff. Whereas Killmonger showed like he was like an identity that was like disconnected from his traditions, and it was like kind of created by the trauma and oppression he faced in the U.S. And even though he's part of like the same royal bloodline as uh as T'Challa, he had a completely different upbringing. So this movie also does, in my opinion, one of the best movies in terms of like gender. in a non-woman dominated like role. So another great way this movie challenges sociological theme and movie norm is the women representation. So when you compare it to like other women side characters shown in other movies like we went over Pepper Potts in Iron Man and Lois Lane in Superman, they don't really even like well the women in this movie don't even feel like side characters. It's like Shuri is shown to be Wakanda's top scientist, probably pretty sure like the most intelligent person shown in the MCU, and she creates majority of the technology that the nation uses, including the Black Panther suit. Okoye was introduced as the head of an extremely talented women-only warrior group called the Dora Milaje, who took on the main antagonist head-on for a short time in the film and did pretty well. And then one last powerful woman introduced was Nakia, which was the morally grounded and politically powerful love interest of T'Challa. And so instead of these women, like especially Nakia, since she's the love interest of the main character, instead of them being shown as like the damsel in distress and they're constantly in need of help or like in revealing outfits and are always being saved by the man, they're powerful figures in their own way and they have just as much, if not more, influence than the main character himself. I mean, the movie wouldn't really be the movie if it wasn't for Shuri making all the technology and Okoye fighting against Killmonger's rule. And yeah. So for class is I think the biggest theme shown in this movie. Or yeah, one of them. So Wakanda disguises themselves throughout the movie as a poor, struggling country in Africa. This is exactly how majority of films are normalized to show third world countries, and we see examples like this in the MCU, like with Afghanistan in Iron Man and Sokovia in Avengers: Age of Ultron, where they're both kind of shown as like war torn, poor, and helpless countries, and it shows that wealth and class are classified by appearance in both movies and in real life and what we deal with today. So, contrary to norms, Wakanda reveals itself to be an extremely successful and technologically advanced country, and they hide these resources to keep their people safe, knowing that if the rest of the world knew about them, they'd come for them and try to exploit them and take their resources for themselves. And when Killmonger arrives, we see a big difference between both him and T'Challa. So they both come from royal blood, but T'Challa grew up as a wealthy person and he was protected from any sort of oppression, being in a secret country. Whereas Killmonger was raised in a lower class American neighborhood where he faced constant racism and oppression daily and ended up turning to the military as his way out. And so when both presented with the conflict that Killmonger had about arming the oppressed people around the world so they could fight back, Killmonger was ready to just battle no matter what, no consequences, doesn't matter how many lives are taken, just give everybody weapons, have them fight back. Whereas T'Challa refused, and the movie ended with T'Challa actually using his country's resources to help the rest of the world in positive ways. So it kind of shows like the difference between their upbringings, where T'Challa's in such a calm, peaceful, like protected upbringing, and he didn't really have any issues. So he wants a peaceful reform, whereas Killmonger, facing constant violence and oppression, he feels like there is no way to do it peacefully, and that there has to be bloodshed. So, um, yeah, the film also raised questions for people in real life reflecting on these issues, like should wealth be used to keep peace or to fight for justice? So these are three important quotes that I picked out from the movie. We have two from Killmonger, one of them being there's about 2 billion people all over the world that look just like us, but their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all, showing his argument that like there are so many people struggling just like them all around the world, and Wakanda has all the resources and tools necessary to help them, yet they don't, simply because those problems that the other people are facing don't apply to them, and he doesn't agree. Another one is just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships because they knew that death was better than bondage. That's obviously talking about the history of like African Americans coming to America and being forced with slavery and oppression and other terrible things that happened in history. And then we have a quote from T'Challa where he says, "My sister is the smartest person in the world," which isn't really like a very impactful quote or whatever, but I put it in because I think it shows the impact and influence that Shuri had on the film, and even still the other women, like his mother, the queen, his love interest Nakia, and the Dora Milaje, and how they, had such an impact. Like, he's saying she's the smartest person in the world, giving them the credit that they deserve, where many other women side characters don't get that in their films. And then sociological theories. So one of them being privilege. So Wakanda exists outside of like the West. It really has no source of privilege for any certain characters unless you're counting wealth. So what I mean by that is like white privilege or male privilege. Like they don't really show big signs of that. I didn't really feel that there was any white privilege in the film, although, since there really were no white people, it was more set in Wakanda. It was only a few times we had like the one agent that was white, but other than that, and no male privilege. I didn't feel like T'Challa or any of the other males got any privilege over the women. I feel like it was pretty equal. But when it comes to wealth, there was definitely a gap. So T'Challa, had the privilege of growing up in a wealthy, protected nation, which was a complete opposite to Killmonger. So to Killmonger, the Wakandans are extremely privileged to be able to turn their heads to the racism and oppression happening all over the world simply because it doesn't affect them. And this point of view is what eventually makes them realize their flaws and try to do better for the world. And so compared to most other movies, Black Panther challenges the ideas of like the white male privilege we're used to seeing. And they having a all or majority black cast, and really having no serious indications of like a male privilege, when you compare it to like Iron Man or something where he was showed, basically the entire movie was about white and male privilege. And then another sociological theory that we went over was otherness. So Wakanda is like considered othered by the world, being seen as like the primitive and weak country by its oppression. I mean, by its opposition. And Wakanda hiding their technology and secretly being so advanced, just basically challenges the norms that most movies are about when they have like third world countries in them. So, third world countries are normally shown as just constantly struggling, weak, poor, everything. Um, so it shows how many societies are looked down upon and underestimated because they are judged solely by the wealth and power they show to the rest of the world, and not for what they have underneath. So connecting this to real life, like I'm not talking about Wakanda, how like, in this instance for Wakanda, the power that they have is their society, their vibranium, their technology. In real life, I wouldn't be talking about, vibranium and technology. I'd be talking about their culture and their innovation and their potential. When many first class citizens see third world countries, especially the way they're portrayed in media, they kind of look down on them and they're dismissed for being like dirty or unsafe because we're looking at them from a surface level and not for really what they truly have to offer on the inside. Which again, culture, their potential that sometimes they'll never see. And then this movie was huge on the culture and the stereotypes. So apart from the film resisting stereotypes by portraying Africa as like an advanced and powerful country, there's also African culture embedded in basically every inch of the film. I think that's one of my favorite parts about it. The characters speak with African accents. They also speak in their native language a lot of the time, and they wear traditional clothing throughout the entire movie. So rather than changing the culture and clothing for new audiences, especially ones in the West, they try to keep it exactly how African culture is in real life. So in the picture below, you can see the lip plates, which are a symbol of pride and beauty in Ethiopian culture, as well as the Zulu hat, which is what the queen is wearing in both those pictures, which holds a meaning for married women in South Africa. It's used during ceremonies and pageants, and it's one of the many ways that married women can show their love and, I guess, like faith and stuff. Due to all the cultures and representation within this movie, it had a huge impact on the rest of the world. It was the first Marvel movie film with a black lead slash cast to have such a successful box office run. as well as, like we said before, $1.3 billion in the box office, as well as 3 Academy Awards and over 30 other awards, according to IMDb. It inspired millions of other people and organizations around the world to be comfortable with their culture and to do what's right and take the time to understand each other's differences rather than live in a world full of, you know, segregation, basically. And yeah, as a conclusion, Black Panther, in my opinion, is more than just a superhero movie. I think it's a reflection of the world's flaws and a reminder that the stereotypes about race, class, and gender that we seem to know as like the norm based on the movies that we watch should not become the standard. And movies like this that show culture in so many different ways, especially ways that are true to real life, those should be what we're used to. And then these are my sources.